Hi everyone, my name is Professor Coleman and I will be presenting to you the Social Studies NES Test Prep Explore More. So let's get started with the agenda. Today we're going to cover the Subtest 1 format, testing tips, social studies, what constitutes social studies, the breakdown, and the competencies. I'm going to talk to you about Google Classroom and how you can get all the materials that I am going to be presenting today. And then we'll end with those good well wishes. So let's move on to the Subtest 1 format. So Subtest 1 includes your language arts and your social studies. The test format is multiple choice. Number of questions is approximately about 75 questions, and you get about 90 minutes to complete it. So when you think about that, I'm going to give you the breakdown between social studies and language arts. The breakdown is 38% of the questions are going to be social studies, 62% are going to be the ELA. So thinking about that, you have 28.5 of the 75 questions. So 28, give or take one, that will be social studies emphasis. And that gives you about 35 minutes to complete the social studies portion, which if you roughly estimate, it's just a little bit over a minute for each question. So you really want to practice and study, and that's what I'm going to help you do, is help you prepare for this test so that you are ready to take the challenge on forward. So now let's go on and look at what constitutes social studies. So social studies is made up of U.S. history, you have culture, geography, economics, world history, historiography, and government. So I'm going to discuss what these are. By the way, if you don't know what historiography is, it's the actual literature, the written word, the stories behind the people. And I know it sounds crazy because it seems like it all is in history, but history really does have broken down sections. So this is the NES Social Studies breakdown of how the questions are organized. The big portion of your questions here are history, U.S. history, and then the historiography or the world history. So that's about 25% for each of those sections. Geography and culture is 19% of the questions. Government will have another 19%, and then your economics will be made up of 12% of those questions. I believe that this is why many students find it difficulty in studying for this test, because of all of the different topics that incorporate social studies. So what I'm going to do is first let's look at what type of learner you are, and that'll help you actually prepare. So are you a visual learner, someone who remembers people's faces better than their names? You enjoy learning through YouTube videos. You're probably at least partially a visual learner, so take advantage of finding the information and using different sources to help you learn. So take detailed notes, mind maps, as you're watching videos or YouTube videos on the NES test prep, and I am going to supply you with the links to these videos. Take some notes, draw some graphics, and get the main gist of the content. Dates in general are important, but you don't have to memorize specific exact dates. You just need to know what time periods these events occur. Use flashcards. Quizlet is great for creating flashcards. In fact, they already have some flashcards created for the NES test prep. So what I'm going to show you right now is an example of this video for the test prep. put out by Mometrics. It is on YouTube, and I will provide you the link at the end of the video. I will show you how to get it. But just to play it, it has all of the content areas that you will be taking for your NES prep. So you'll see that it'll start with science, and I'm going to forward to social studies just to give you a gist of what is offered.
Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process used by plants in the Declaration of Independence. So on July 4th, 1776, all 13 colonies, all representatives from those 13 colonies, to be known as states, ratified the Declaration of Independence, which declared that King George had violated rights of American colonists.
So as you can see, they provide you with some notes, some lectures, some information. Feel free to take that information and make it into your own type of thinking map the best way that you know how. Now, if you're an auditory learner, then you're going to look for audio recordings or, again, videos. You can still use those. Verbalize what you've learned. Record it. Even when you have documents that you find, put it in the text-to-speech reader and read it and have the computer read it to you and take notes that way. So knowing how you learn best will help you also prepare. The other part that is put out by the NES Testing Center is they give you steps on how to actually prepare for their actual test. So step 1, test your content knowledge. Read and test. So what they mean by read is you want to read through the entire test frame. And when you're reading through the entire test frame, you'll get an idea of what's going to be expected of you. You want to look at the descriptive statement, and we're going to look at one and see how it's all set up. We're going to look at the descriptive statement, and then you want to see the examples of the content cover, and then you'll take the sample test questions. So the best way to think about it is as you have your subject, your specific section, the standard, and then the objective or the learning goal. So here we can see that it is social science. That's our test, but that'll be our subject, right? The content or the specific domain is historiography and world history. In competency, it'll tell us, underline the historical concepts, the terms, sources, and perspectives, and research skills, and then it'll give us the descriptive statement. So I'm going to show you this in a larger picture. So here's a larger picture I was talking about. The descriptive statement here says distinguish between primary and secondary sources, historical information, and evaluate their credibility and reliability. So that is, if you think about it, your overall goal. How do you know that you're ready to take this test? You know you can do this. So then once you think, okay, I'm ready to do this, look at the example questions. So here's one of the test questions. Which of the following bibliographic citation identifies a primary historical source? And then you look through them and test your knowledge, and then they'll have provide you answers. So this at least gives you a gist of what they're actually looking for you to do from this goal, this learning goal. So the descriptive statement is really your learning goal. So I'm not going to read through all of the competencies because you can do that on your own time and break it down to what areas you really need to study in. I will provide you some information for these competencies. So I'm just going to show you this document. This is found in the NES website, and I also will have a link to the actual document to save you some time. Here is the content to social studies. You have understand fundamental concepts related to the government. So this is the overall content area, and then here are your goals. You need to be able to recognize basic structures, functions, purposes of government, including the constitutional principles and democratic foundations of the government. So if you go through this in detail and break it down for yourself in an outline form of, okay, what do I know about the government? What do I understand the Constitution? Do I know the 3 branches of government and their functions? Demonstrate the knowledge and principle of democratic civic involvement. So voting, the rights, look at the Declaration of Independence, look at your civil liberties, demonstrate knowledge and organization of politics in the world, characteristics of different forms of government. So when they're talking about the different forms of government, it's not just democratic, but you want to look at communist, what is in, you want to look at all those governments, and I'll give you more information on that. I just want you to see how it's broken down. So first one is understand fundamental concepts related to the government economics, and then they have sample questions. Understand fundamental concept and major developments related to the U.S. and world history. Let me go to understand fundamental concept related to geography and methods of social studies inquiry. So there's those competencies and the test question, a sample. And that is pretty much what they have on this document here, and I will provide you all of this information. It seems really basic, but there's a lot of knowledge that you need to have. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind, you're going to have to be a critical thinker. You're going to have to think critically here. That means study for the test so that you can make a reasonable guess if you need to do that. You can problem solve those questions, and you can then evaluate and make the best choice possible. During this time, if we were live, I would hand out a handout for you that has all the different eras. However, since we're doing this online, I will provide you that handout, and it'll all be in the Google Classroom, but I'm going to show you how it's broken down. So there are 15 eras,